Good evening, everyone. We're going to wait just a few seconds to let all our guests get on. So we'll welcome you here. We're so glad to see everyone. This is our legislative long session presentation. As everyone knows by now, the title of our presentation tonight, that the long session of the North Carolina General Assembly does start on January 13th. And so we thought this was a good time to go over some of the things about the session and information that you can access on your own to keep track of what's going on. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. We've got a quick agenda tonight, but before we do, I want to introduce myself. I always almost forget, and our other panelists. I'm Yvonne Brannon. I am Chair of Public Schools First NC, and with me tonight is Lynn Edmonds. Lynn is our Outreach Director for Public Schools First NC. And so we're really happy to be here, and we're going to try to get you through this agenda in a timely fashion. And we will have an opportunity to stop for questions about midway and at the end. So if you can just save up your questions, you can certainly put them in the chat at that time or in the question place. But do feel free to ask us questions, but we'll give you two opportunities to do that halfway through and at the end. So quickly, a little bit about what we're going to be talking about tonight is I want to do a little bit of oversight. One of the most important things we think to understand and a tool for you to use is the North Carolina General Assembly website. So we're going to go over that a lot and most of the features on there. When that's done, one of the things that we also want to talk to you about tonight is Leandro and the very, very unique court case and what impact it could have on the General Assembly this year. And Lynn will be going over that with you shortly. And then at the end, we want to go over a little bit about what Public Schools First is going to be doing at the General Assembly this year. What is our legislative agenda? And these are just a few comments just to kind of get us in the frame of mind about what is the long session. You may hear people talk sometimes about it's the long session and versus the short session. And we have to confess, though, Lynn and I were talking the other night, and we can't hardly remember in the last decade there's ever been a really short session. Short sessions usually end in June, sometimes May in the past. Now, this past year, in the even years, is the short session. And in our even year, that we're completing right now, you can see that the General Assembly was here quite a lot in April, May, June, July, again in August, and at the very beginning of September. But normally, the long session lasts from January to about mid-July. Is when they usually vote on the budget before they go adjourn for the July 4th holiday. Over the last couple of cycles, that has not happened. It's gone all the way into August and often September. But the two things to understand about the General Assembly is we have a Senate. The president of the Senate is Phil Berger. He is elected by his colleagues, and he is a Republican. And you can see there's 29 Republicans and 21 Democrats in the Senate. So they have the majority, so they get to elect the Senate president. There's 50 members. In the House, the Speaker of the House is Tim Moore. Again, in the House, we have 65 Republicans and 55 Democrats, meaning that they also get to elect, they have the votes to elect the Speaker of the House. So that's just a quick look at those facts, and then let's let Lynn get going on talking a little bit about the website.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us, those of you that are with us. And we're going to archive this video. You'll be able to find it on our YouTube channel, and we're going to talk to you about that later. Right now, we're going to go over the North Carolina General Assembly website. There's going to be a lot of screenshots, but we think we are showing you some really useful, helpful tools. The General Assembly's website is actually very user-friendly, so we both encourage you to check it out and look at it yourself. Again, you'll see a lot of screenshots tonight that'll hopefully help you navigate it. We're going to talk about the legislative calendar that's on the web, show you how to find your representatives, show you how to watch or listen to some committee meetings and listen and watch the sessions, and then also how to track and follow a bill. So this is just a screenshot of the homepage of the General Assembly. If you look across the top, you see that there's a menu bar there with the House, the Senate, audio, calendars, committees, bills and laws, etc. That top bar, all of those are active links and pull down menus. The news and information screen or section over on the left-hand side has got some really neat links. For example, that summaries of substantive ratified legislation that happened in 2020. You could look at the highlights of what happened in 2020. That's helpful. And then you see that the House has its own page and the Senate has its own page, and then the legislative calendar listed down below. So this is still a screenshot of the home page. We didn't click over. All we did was scroll down under the legislative calendar. It just expands that calendar for you. And what we want you to see here is that there is a tab at the bottom that says more events, so you can expand it and see even further into the session. You can see upcoming meetings, upcoming committee meetings, sessions, etc. We put arrows by the stream button, and also by where it says virtual, see committee website for details. These streaming buttons, we are pretty sure it's for live streaming only. We have not found a place where they archive their videos of committee meetings. So you're pretty much going to use these buttons. Again, they're on the home page under the legislative calendar area section. And that's how you're going to be able to watch and live stream these committee meetings. Sometimes you'll have video and sometimes you'll just have audio. It depends on what room that they're in. And we're going to find out in this new long session whether or not we suspect there's going to be a lot more video this year, but we won't really know until the session starts. Once in a while, you'll be able to watch an archive meeting on WRAL's website. But again, it's just real important to know that it's mostly for live streaming. These are some of the education committees that we follow and ones that we want to draw your attention to. Education K-12, education oversight, appropriations, etc. You can read all that on your own. And then this, again, we're back on the home page. We're going to continue to talk about committees. So you'll see that committees tab at the top of the page. And then we want to show you that last menu option that says committees page. So when you click that, it takes you here. And you see three options. You see find a committee page, committee assignments, and display committee names. Committee assignments would show you the members of a particular committee, who sits on the committee, who chairs it, etc. Committee names matching is what you would use if you were searching for a topic. So it's okay if you don't know the name of a particular committee. If you wanted to look at all the education committees, you would simply type education under that committee names matching. And it would pull up all of the education related committees for you, and it would help you find what you're looking for. But we're going to focus on that top menu option that says go to a committee page. So under that option, it would give you all of the committees in the General Assembly in alphabetical order, and we chose education K-12. So again, on the previous slide that we selected the option to see all of the committees. We picked education K-12, and this is what comes up. This is what a committee page looks like. You can see that there's membership there. You can look at all the members, the bills that have come through this committee, whether they've passed or not. There's a thing called documents. The documents is where you're going to find committee agendas, meeting materials, minutes from previous meetings, committee reports, etc. That's what that documents tab means. But we want to show you this really cool tool. You will see one of our arrows says meeting notices by email. That is a link where you can subscribe and sign up for this particular committee, and you will be notified. You will get email notifications when they're meeting. And it will give you the details, you know, the room, how to stream, the time. It is important to understand that these committee meetings, the times it change. Yvonne, you're headed too far.
I am very sorry. I jumped the gun.
That's okay. Yeah. So just to let you know that it is very common for these meeting times and dates to change. They get rescheduled fairly often. So just be prepared for that. And Yvonne and I both subscribe to a lot of these committees. I don't feel like I get spammed. They really just serve the purpose of meeting notifications, and they're very, very helpful. Okay, the General Assembly has a YouTube channel now, and that is new for 2020. As far as we know, they're primarily using this to stream some of their meetings because of the pandemic. So some of the committee meetings are happening on Zoom or some other platform where the members are, you know, meeting remotely. And so on the YouTube channel, they're streaming those meetings. Again, I want to explain, we don't see on the YouTube channel that they are archiving any of their videos. It appears that this is only for live streaming of the committee meetings and the sessions. And if that changes, you know, we'll keep an eye on it. And you see that you can subscribe to this channel and you can be notified when a video is happening or a meeting is streaming. All right, find your representatives. We're going to talk about that. I've got more screenshots coming up, but it's important to know that every North Carolinian has one House member and one senator in the General Assembly. We're going to show you how to find those people. You will see their contact information, their committee assignments, sponsored bills, and some more information about them. So let's look at how to find these folks. Again, we're back at the home page. This is a screenshot of the home page, and there's a tab up in the very far right corner that says Find Your Legislators. So you click on that. And it will take you to this screen where you look up your legislators by your home address. So all you do is type in your home address in that search bar. Now, real quick, before Yvonne changes the slide, look under where it says by address, and you see it says body. I know that that's a real small text, and you select U.S. House, North Carolina House, North Carolina Senate. You actually can ignore that. You don't have to choose one, because once you put your address in, it's going to show you everything. It's going to show you all of your representatives, both in Congress and in the legislature. So you type in your address, and this is, I used mine as an example, and it shows, and again, I know I'm sorry that that is very small print, but circled in that big purple circle, I can see my House representative and I can see my senator. And those names, even though they're real tiny, mine are Allison Dahl and Jay Chowdhury is my senator. Those are hot links for the names. So you click on one of the names, and we clicked on Allison Dahl, Representative Allison Dahl, and it takes us to her web page, her legislative page. And there's tons of great information here. So you can see at the top, it shows her biography, bills that she has introduced. It has a record of her votes, and it shows the committees that she serves on. And then it's circled, we've got her phone number for her office, her email, the name of her legislative assistant, and then down underneath it shows her mailing address. So a couple of things I want to tell you. Don't ignore the legislative assistants. They are there to help constituents. So feel free to contact those folks, to call them, to email them. Her name in this case is Ann Evangelista. If you click that, you'll get Ann's contact information as well. Don't hesitate to contact those legislative assistants. It is their job to help you when you call and when you email. The other thing that you can consider is using that mailing address and sending what we all call snail mail, and send a postcard or a letter about your particular concerns or questions, because, you know, this day and age, we all get so many emails. Sometimes a postcard or a letter in the mail gets more attention and can have a little bit more impact than sending an email. And then finally, I just want to note that the map that you see on the right-hand side of your screen, those actually expand. So if you really want to get take a deep dive and look at district borders and the map of the district, you can click on that map and those will enlarge and you get lots more detail.
Okay, well, Lynn, that's good information and a very a good tip there about the LA. Most of the time, they not only know what's going on, they know what the calendar is. They can tell you when the representative is coming back in the office or not for the day, so you don't waste your time calling. And they're usually very, very helpful when you have procedural questions about when the session's starting today. It's been delayed, what's going on. And so I think that was great advice. So we're now going to switch over and look at the Bills and Law tab on the home page and talk a little bit about that and our agenda. So one of the things you'll see here is I am a big fan of this page. It's probably where I spend a lot of my time. Lynn has told you that this website is incredibly valuable. And really, you've gone over the three things that I use a lot are the calendars, the committees, and then the bills and laws. And this is a page here. You can see on the home page, we've clicked on here so that you can see this bills and laws. Now, again, it is very small. I'm very sorry. It might be really good if you even open this up in your own browser. I'm not sure. But if you look down here, sometimes when I'm going in to look at a bill and what's going on, I get lost. I start clicking on all of these places and I find it so fascinating. But one of the things that I use a lot is I want to know how people vote on bills. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to look up a bill in a second. But before we do that, if you'll look over here on the right-hand side, way down there under related information, it says votes on bills. So this website, this web page is every single thing you want to know, the portal to search for any bill that's ever been passed, any bill status where it's at. You can look up for House members for the Senate. You can look up resolutions. There's a place here at the bottom on the right-hand side. You can find out, it says bills that have been signed by the governors, bills that are pending, waiting on the governor's signature, bills that the governor vetoed. So these are really important opportunities. And the last thing there are enacted bills that became law without the governor's signature. There are many laws and statutes that can be passed and the governor does not have to respond to them. But I clicked on here to look at votes on bills because I want to see what's going on there. And this is what the page takes me to. It shows for the 1920 session, I can go in and look up every single member and see what their vote history was. I can look and see if they were attending for the roll call, they were missing at the roll call. I can see how they voted yay or nay. Same thing on the Senate side. And I can even get detailed information on member vote statistic. This may not seem too interesting to you right now, but sometimes we've had legislators who don't show up to vote a lot. And you can go in there and see their record when they're missing in action, so to speak, and it can become very important. So anyway, I'm going to now move forward and show you another thing that we do. At the very top of your website, this stays in place all the time. Right underneath Find Your Legislator, which Lynn pointed out to you earlier, there is this bar that says Bill Text. This is really the same thing as we have over here on the left-hand side. You can hot link there under Bill Reports. Bill Lookup by Number, search Bill Text. So you can go through this, but to me, I use this little bar across the top. It's really easy to do. And you pull down that Bill Text menu, you see that it says all Bill Text, Lookup. Sorry, that's my friendly poodle. You know, they like to bark. Then it says bills and members. One of the things that's really cool about these this bar is allows you to type in, which I'll show you in a second, the bill text, like what is a bill's name, let's say COVID. You can look up the actual bill number if you know that. You can also, when you see under their members, if you just click on that, the bar allows you just to type in someone's name. A quick way to find Allison Dahl. Click, just type her name in there. If you don't want to go through committees and House and members, if you're just in a hurry and you want to click up there and say Phil Berger, type it in and it will take you to his page. So another cool function on this bill is that if you text all, you don't have to know anything about when the bill was introduced, what the bill name is, or the bill number. You can just type in there COVID, and anything related to that will show up. So let's go a little further down the road here. Like on this one, I typed in under text COVID, and this is what showed up. I thought, I know it's about COVID. I'm not sure what the name of the bill was. I can't remember, because they name these bills sometimes short, sometimes long names, so you can't remember the number. But I typed in COVID, and there popped up 4 bills that were passed recently in the 1920 session about COVID. Another little thing you can do is sometimes you do know the bill number. I know HB 50. We've been talking about it. It's in the news. Someone, WRL reported House Bill 1050 passed today, allowing blah, blah. And so you can type in the bill number here and it will take you to the page. I typed in 1050 and there it is. Bill 1050 was about low performing school districts. And this page is got everything on it you need to know about the bill. It tells you when it was filed, all the versions, that it was ratified, which means it was voted on and passed in both houses. And then SL, that means it's become a statute. Okay, it's become a law. And so this allows you to go and look on this bill page is where you want to go when you really want to understand what's happening with the bill, what the wording is, who voted on it, when it passed, and when it is going to be effective. Here, I did not know, I couldn't remember about class size. I know that we've been talking about class size over the years, and I was very interested in looking to see if there'd been any recent bills. So the thing I like about the All tab is you don't have to know the session. On all the other tabs, they asked you to pick a session. Was it 2019-20? Was it 2018? Was it 2017? Well, sometimes I just can't remember. It could have been last year or 2 years ago. So a lot of times I will just type in what I'm looking for under the All button because I don't have to worry about the bill name, the bill number, or when the bill passed. And of course, I typed in class size, and here's what I get. Every single thing where it said 3,070 results where class size were mentioned in bills. And I can sort these by relevance, and I can sort these by the date, what year they happened. So this is also a great little tool to use, and I use it a lot. The other thing I'd like to point out to you, especially if you're new to following the website or not, like me, but that is under the About the General Assembly, there's a lot of information there that's really important. It tells you, contact information for the building itself, visitor information. But I like to use a lot is the button under Educational Resources. One of the things that I use there a lot, and I'll show you that screenshot when I click on that, is a glossary of terms. This is really a great page too if you ever want to share anything with if you have children or grandchildren, or if you teach. It has a lot of educational resources here also about how a bill becomes a law, things about our state seal motto, teaching materials, and fun facts about the General Assembly. It's a very interesting page for students as well as educators. But the thing I use it for a lot is a glossary of legislative terms. And this is when you click there is what you get. And it's a very useful page. I remember one time someone asked me what it meant to be ratified. What does it mean to be, that it was adopted? Does that mean it passed or it didn't pass? Well, it doesn't mean that it passed. It just means that it was approved as an amendment or report, but that's not making it a law. That's not ratifying it and so forth. So this is a really helpful page sometime to help you understand the statuses that are reported on a bill. So this is what, as we said, we've gone over a lot here, and this is where we want to take a 2-second pause and see if anyone has any questions. Lynn, do you see anything in the chat? If you typed it in the chat or on the question?
You know what? Actually, I didn't check the chat. I don't see any in the questions
Okay,
area,
fine.
but I actually have one back on one of our really early slides when we showed the breakdown of the House and the Senate. Does the do the Republicans still hold a veto-proof majority? I don't believe they do.
Right now, I think
they're still in the majority, but I believe that
the governor still can veto in the House. And that's a really important question. One of the things that which is why when I was pointing out earlier on that page is that talked about what the governor had signed, what he hadn't signed, what he vetoed. That's really important to follow, because a lot of times a bill that, even though it got a lot of support, the governor can veto any bill. And what Lynn's talking about is, so then it goes back to the House and Senate and they can let it go. They don't have to vote on it again, or they can decide to contest his veto. And to do that, they have to win the majority of the next vote. And so that often happens. And then they could, even no matter what the split is in the House and the Republicans and Democrats are, they could override a veto. All the Democrats could override a veto, right?
Right.
It's just a matter of if they get enough votes. And when we say veto proof, that usually means that if parties hold to the party line and they vote by the party, often they can sustain a veto challenge. So, okay, so let's move on then, because we've got a lot more good information here. And I'll just kind of summarize this section right here that we just went over with you before we get into Leandro. It's just want to remind you that we follow all the education committees. We follow all the education bills. And every week when the General Assembly starts, we'll have a legislative update that's done by our colleague, Elizabeth Lamb. And she will follow these bills. She'll update, like, did a bill get voted on? Did it get sent to committee? Did it get sent to the governor? And this is a really important feature, and I hope that you will all go on our website sometime. If you don't get our newsletter, sign up to get it, because that's also a way to get these legislative updates every Saturday morning, and sometimes Thursday morning or Friday morning, but mostly Saturday. We'll send in the General Assembly when they're in session. We'll send you a newsletter, and it'll have all the updates of anything that's happened on the bills. This is really important. So visit our website, and also, follow us on all the social media outlets, because that's where we also post, and especially breaking news. Like if there's a big vote on an education bill that was really good or really bad, we're going to tweet it. We're going to have it posted on Facebook, and we want you to be able to follow it. But now we want to move and talk a little bit about one of the most important court cases for public education, probably since the first public school opened in 1840.
Thank you. Hopefully our audience, everybody watching, knows about the Leandro case. But if you don't, you need to be prepared to hear about it in 2021. There should be a lot of reporting on it. It is a very important court case in North Carolina, and it all revolves around education funding. So I'm going to give you just a few points about Leandro. What is it exactly? It is a lawsuit that was filed in 1994, and it is ongoing, which is heartbreaking. But it was originally filed in 1994 by parents and students and school districts in 5 North Carolina counties, rural, low-wealth counties, and those were Cumberland, Hoke, Halifax, Robeson, and Vance. And they filed the lawsuit arguing that North Carolina was in violation of our state constitution by not providing an adequate or equitable funds to enable students to receive a sound basic education, especially students in low-wealth communities and students of color. And this is what our North Carolina state constitution says. It says that the state must provide a sound basic education for all children. It's important to know that not all states have this written into their state constitutions. In fact, very few of them do, but North Carolina is one that does have it, and that is the basis of the Leandro lawsuit. Here is, as I said, it's a case that is largely about school funding. So this is just a North Carolina school funding at a glance. Right now, North Carolina is 49th in the United States in what they call state funding effort. And that means that that is how much a state spends or invests on public education, public schools, relative to their GDP or their gross domestic product. We are 46th in the US in per pupil spending. What's unfortunate about that statistic, it's unfortunate on its own, but that has really been stagnant for over 10 years. We really have not moved much on that number in a decade. We hover in the 40s. So we're 46 in the US in per pupil spending. And some people, we spend about $10 billion per year on education. Can you back up, Yvonne? What you'll hear some lawmakers will brag about education is the largest part of the entire state budget, and that is true. And you'll also hear that $10 billion is the most that we have ever spent on public schools in the history of our state. That's also technically true. But when you take a deep dive into school funding in North Carolina and the school and the education budget of our state, you find that we are spending less on things like professional development for our teachers and principals. We are spending less on textbooks and many, many more. That's a whole presentation in and of itself. And now we can go on to the next slide. So our tax rate, why do we have this slide here for you? Why are we going to bring this up? This is important because lawmakers have cut our corporate tax rate every budget cycle since 2013. In 2013, you see that our corporate tax rate was 6.9%. It is now 2.5%. And we have a distinction that I don't think we should be proud of. We now have the absolute lowest corporate tax rate in the United States. Now, we describe that as a bad thing, and that is because it really, really hurts North Carolina's ability to invest in public goods and services, and that certainly includes public education. And we are an outlier. You see here that Virginia and South Carolina, our neighbors to the north and to the south of us, their corporate tax rate is at 5%. North Carolina is the absolute lowest in the United States, and that matters. Leandro, this is another big figure. Leandro, there's a group called WestEd. I'll tell you about them in just a moment, but they're education experts, and they have projected that it would cost about $8 billion to fully fund Leandro over the next 8 years. And we're going to talk about why that matters with the legislative session on the next slide. Because we can all agree that $8 billion is a lot of money, right? So what's important about Leandro and the legislative session for 2021 is that that is the first opportunity that the legislature has to start funding that, working toward that $8 billion investment. So it matters what happens in this long session related to this court case. There are certainly going to be key policies to watch that are also related to Leandro. For example, and bills that will be introduced or reintroduced. Last session, there was a bill introduced to restore teaching assistants in North Carolina in grades K-3, and that bill did not go anywhere. That is one of the recommendations that the education experts recommend, and it's something that we have been advocating for ever since our inception as an organization. We want teaching assistants back in grades K-3. So that's something that we would be following that would help fully fund Leandro. Judge David Lee is the judge that is responsible for Leandro, overseeing the court case, and he is expected to receive a report from the General Assembly and from the state school board. Yvonne, if you'll go back. We are expecting him to receive a report later this month. We were hoping it would happen before our webinar tonight, but not yet. So we will report on it in January. And that's what we're talking about here. We're going to do a Leandro webinar on January 7th, and it will, because I just barely gave you any information tonight. So in January, it's all about Leandro. It'll kind of be like a Leandro 101 class. We're going to talk about the history of the case. We're going to go into detail about the West Ed report, and we're going to talk more about the hearings that have taken place and the critical needs that North Carolina must fund to give children a sound basic education. Did you want to say anything else, Yvonne?
Lynn, I do want to say something that you have always say in your webinar presentation that you've done on Leandro, and that is that something that the judge said recently, which is that the General Assembly cannot use COVID as an excuse for not funding Leandro. The fact that this case has been going on for, as Lynn said, for 25 years, and we have not made progress. And sometimes people want to think this is a Republican or a Democrat issue. It is not. Both of the judges that have been following this case and managing this case for well almost 2 decades have been Republicans, and they both have come back with the same consequences over and over again, which you're not doing enough, you've got to do more. And Judge Lee is one of the first judges we've had who's actually said, I'm going to have an independent study. He did. It said you need to spend more in some certain areas. He said you will do it. Now, the battle is going to start in the long session, and I do hope you'll come back on January 7th because Lynn has an excellent presentation, and we'll know more by then also from the judge, because this is going to be how we drive home all of those things that we always care about. And that leads me into a quick overview of our legislative agenda. Many of the items that are on our legislative agenda, things that we care about and we lobby for every year, are also the same issues that come up in Leandro. So there wasn't Leandro's, the West Ed report. The West Ed report didn't shock anyone, right? Because for 2 decades, especially the last 5 and 6 years, education advocates, child welfare advocates have been saying a lot of these things. We need more pre-K. We need helping professionals in our school system. If you haven't used that term helping professionals before, keep in mind that that's your school nurses, your school psychologists, your school social workers, and your school counselors. And you're going to hear that word over and over again, mental health services, mental health helping professionals, and then restoring the teacher's pipeline. I'm not going to go over all of these right now with you, but that legislative agenda is on our page. I've listed it up here. Go to publicschoolsfirst.org and click on across the bar is legislative updates. That's where you'll find our agenda. You'll find all the things that are going on in the General Assembly, as well as Elizabeth's weekly update on what's going on with the bills. But some of the things that we're really excited about, because we've actually seen some movement at the state level and the federal level over the last year about recognizing and committing to doing more universal access to high quality pre-K. Now, Public Schools First NC, we believe that pre-K should be free for all kids. We believe that with the opportunity for all 3 and 4-year-olds to get a publicly paid, publicly delivered preschool is really important. And this is a pretty well-held belief among almost all people who work with young children and all people who advocate for public education. We've actually saw some movement over the last couple of years of a little bit more money coming for pre-K, but it's not enough. So this is going to stay on ours. And I think, Lynn, yesterday you mentioned to me there was 50,000 kids that are on the waiting list right now. And that's just kids who are income eligible. That means poor kids, right, folks? And that's 50,000 kids are on that waiting list. So why is that important? Because that's helping kids get ready and prepared for being successful in kindergarten. And it's also the place where we can identify in preschool and start remediating issues that might be impairing one's ability to learn, whether it's reading glasses or other health conditions or learning disabilities that we can, mediate through, and just learning how to be successful in there. So this is all top of our list every year. It's back on our agenda this year, and it's also high on the list for at the federal level. We've heard that, some of the people who watch the U.S. Department of Education have said that there are 3 topics that are showing up there with high support on both sides of the aisle, which is pre-K. The other is helping professionals, recognizing that before COVID and absolutely after COVID, that the mental health issues impacting our children have grown substantially. One of the things that Lynn and I sadly reported yesterday in a article we were preparing is that the second leading cause of death among children 10 to 17 now is suicide. That's pretty startling fact. And so one of the ways that kids get their services is through school. 85% of kids who need mental health services, if they don't get them through contacts at school and referrals and links with their helping professionals, they don't get it at all. So this is really important, and we know that COVID has made these things worse. And I think common sense is school nurse, right? We needed school nurses before because of the high number of kids with allergies and diabetics and asthmas and autistic and all these children who come to school and need medications and need help at school. And now we have, COVID in testing to make sure kids are not sick with COVID. So this is really high on our list as well. And the increase for public education funding, this has been an outcry for a decade. Yesterday I actually found an article that we contributed to back in 2015 that was talking about the awful gap between funding of what is needed to fund for special education students and what we're actually getting. And so there is a big push at the federal level to raise the cap on the amount of money that can come to a school district or to a state to help out paying the cost for special education kids, because it can be from anywhere from 100 to 200% more than for an average child who does not need special ed services. So we're going to be pushing this really hard this year. And this is another one of those items that has been mentioned by people who watch Congress and watch the U.S. Education Department as highly likely to be a funding opportunity. So we're going to let you know about that. And of course, one of our other agenda items that has been with us for some time, but we've worked really hard on the last since 2011, 2013, when this started happening, is that we are really concerned about restoring the North Carolina teacher pipeline. Reports are that for anywhere from 30 to 40% drop in the enrollment of students into education programs in our colleges and universities, private and public, in North Carolina. So we have a big group of teachers right now who are moving into retirement years. We have over about 25% of our teachers are in that 20+ years. As they start aging and retiring out, and we're not bringing in new teachers. We have got a critical teacher shortage going on, friends, and it's only going to get worse. And we are going to keep working on all these things we've listed here that we think will improve that pipeline. The last thing I'll mention about our agenda is that we're very keen on this, and it's something that we're really proud of, actually. We've been advocating from the very beginning. Our name is Public Schools First. We believe in public education, that it is the cornerstone of our democracy, and it is a public good that serves the public needs, and it's the common good kind of mentality. Lynn said that we're proud that our Constitution says that we will guarantee every child's right to an education, and that, you know, we believe in that, and we believe that we have a ethical, moral, and obligation as well. So we believe that public dollars that are collected from the taxpayer should go for the public common good. So we are calling for moratoriums on our vouchers. We want to restore the cap on charter schools. We think it's gone too far with no accountability. And we really believe that if ever, with the strain that our schools are under right now, public dollars being diverted into a separate school systems, private schools and charters, unaccountable charter schools, is not building and strengthening our public school system. We believe in one unified system of schools, the public schools of North Carolina. And when you divert that money away from that goal into 2 or 3 or 4 other systems of education, we think that that is weakening our ability to make sure that every child under the laws of our Constitution can be successful. So we're not going to go over all of our agenda, but these are some of the key points that we believe strongly on and we'll be working on this legislative session. Again, I invite you to sign up for our newsletter, follow us on Facebook, because this is the 2 places where you can find a lot of information and get legislative updates. So we're going to, that's kind of the end of our presentation. And we want to make sure that we give a chance now for some more questions.
So we had a question in the that someone submitted, and I'm hearing it as a little bit of a criticism, but that's okay. We welcome that. She is saying that this is all very good information. This is all important, but what we need to be discussing today is COVID, and what are we going to do about COVID? Well, my response is, number one, we do have a very important long session coming up in January that we wanted to prepare you for. So that was really our intent for this particular webinar. The other thing that I would say, as far as the General Assembly is concerned, since 2011, 2013, the General Assembly has called special sessions for all kinds of things. Related to HB2, which was a very discriminatory action. They called other special sessions actually right around now, around the holidays, around Christmas time, to enact some surprise legislation that didn't allow much input for public comment, that didn't allow much time for minority lawmakers in the minority party to prepare, or to read bills, or to read reports, or read materials. They've chosen not to call a special session on COVID since September. So I don't know what to say to you, audience, and to the person that asked this question. I would suggest that you go back, use our tools, use our slides, and find your 2 lawmakers in the General Assembly, your House member and your senator, and send them an email or give them a phone call and ask, where is the special session to address COVID?
And we absolutely must do that. We are going to be following COVID. You can see that one of my questions earlier when I was doing bill searches was on COVID, and that was intentional, because I was just like Lynn saying, I'm like, where are the COVID bills? There's not any pending bills on COVID. And why aren't we seeing those drafted? And let's just hope that, you know, in a month, just about a month from today, that when the General Assembly convenes, that the #1 thing on their minds will be COVID relief. because we need COVID relief for all those issues that affect everyone in our community, but especially our children. There are people who've been evicted from their homes. There was an article just today showing how COVID has actually spread worse because of there's so many people who have been living in homeless shelters and living in their cars and not getting health care and not getting tested, that the implications of not managing COVID well and not having better unemployment benefits for people who've lost their jobs, better protections for people to stay in their home and to get health care, the lack of expanding Medicaid. There are many, many issues around poverty and health care that are impacting our rural communities and our children. And we appreciate that question. And I do not want you to think that we are not concerned about COVID, because we are. And in fact, a lot of the things that impact our schools indirectly are kind of COVID related too, right? In terms of helping professionals. We want school nurses in the schools. We want schools to open safely. And we have been a strong advocate from the very beginning that schools must open safely for educators and kids. And we do not back away from that.
That's true. But Yvonne, since we are talking about the General Assembly tonight, our schools, our school districts across this state need the help of our state lawmakers. They need help. They need relief on some of these policies. I know that tonight there's another webinar happening about the mandatory in-person testing. Now, some of this is related to at the federal level too. We understand that. We understand that we need federal help, but we also need our state leadership to show up. And they don't have to wait until January. They do have the ability to call special sessions. And here we are. And just finally on the topic of COVID, I do want to be sure that we understand. I want to reiterate what you said, Yvonne, about Judge David Lee. He specifically said in September that in a hearing in September, just a couple months ago, that the General Assembly cannot use COVID and the financial constraints or financial fallout of COVID to stop them from educating North Carolina's children. And I'm so glad you made that point, because I forgot to make it, and it is really important.
And in just kind of to wrap all this up in a little bow, right now, Congress is fighting over a stimulus bill, a COVID stimulus bill that will be delivered to all the states. And North Carolina and all states desperately need COVID relief money. Some of it is for testing and healthcare, and some of it is for PPE in our schools, and some of it is to help, provide for helping professionals in our schools. So it's a complicated issue right now, but the state has done nothing in the last 4 months, and I'm with Lynn. I don't quite get that, and I hope that we'll see some changes. So back to January 13th, certainly an important day, and I hope a lot of you are watching tonight will show up and be paying attention when the General Assembly opens. I hope you will do as Lynn has invited you, learn a lot about your legislators and communicate with them. One of the things that on the homepage, when you look up House members or Senate members, you can get a list of all the members of the House. You can get a list of all the Senate members. There's an email there that you can email all the members of the General Assembly at one time. So you can be very efficient with your concerns, your complaints, or your questions, right? And hopefully occasionally your thank yous by going in there. So communicating with your legislator is very, very important. And don't forget to also communicate with your local school board, with your local county commissioners, because they also almost always have paid lobbyists themselves who are at the General Assembly lobbying for things that our schools need and lobbying for the revenue our counties and schools need. So they're part of the equation too. Any other questions?
No, I didn't see any, and it's we're wrapping up. Let's move on to that last slide and show everybody our social media platforms and talk a little bit more about our YouTube channel. I mentioned at the beginning of the program that we are going to put this webinar on our YouTube channel. I wish I had a screenshot of it. We have really ramped up. We had done videos and conferences that we taped, and all that was on our YouTube channel prior to COVID. But like everyone else, we've had to really ramp up our digital game. And so we've done a lot of really good webinars since mid-March, and you can find all of those on our YouTube channel. When you go to the YouTube channel, you want to specifically click on the videos tab. You get on the home page, and I forget what that first tab says, but the tab to the right, the first tab to the right says videos. And you'll see just many, many, many videos there that we've done with a variety of panelists. We've had teachers on the program. We have had attorneys that are involved with the Leandro case on our program. Many other really great videos that we want you to check out. And you can see the topics underneath each one so that you can choose what most interests you. And then we'll keep doing that in the new year. And then you can see our other social media platforms here. Like Yvonne said, be sure to sign up for our newsletter, check out our fact sheets. Every month we are updating our fact sheets. You know, we are constantly keeping those fresh and updated for you.
And so in closing, I want to encourage everyone to get involved and stay up to date. Your voice matters. Believe it or not, in the General Assembly, there are people who do listen to what you have to say. You can establish a relationship with your legislators, and you can also talk to committee chairs. Lynn and I have spent many days, many hours at the General Assembly talking to the chair of the Education Committee, talking to the chair of the Education Budget Committee, going and attending meetings in person. The good thing that Lynn mentioned to you earlier is that the website during COVID, during our stay-at-home time, has actually improved a lot, and there's a lot more information, so you're able to do a lot more participating in a virtual setting. So that's really important. 10 years ago, there was one, other than the House and the Senate chambers, there was no audio in any of the rooms, and certainly no video. So we've already seen that's increased a lot, and the information on their website has really gotten to be remarkably good, and you can find almost anything you want if you just spend about 15 or 20 minutes on there. Most important, I can say, is that we appreciate your time. We appreciate your support. We hope you will follow us and that we can be of help to you. If you think of a question we didn't answer tonight, or you get concerned about something over the next couple of days or weeks or months as the General Assembly starts, you can email us, okay? info@publicschoolsfirstnc.org. You can email Lynn at publicschoolsfirstnc.org, Yvonne at publicschoolsfirstnc.org. Any of these addresses will get to us. You can post questions on our Facebook pages, or you can tweet us, right? And especially if there's something you're really concerned about, that a bill's introduced and you want to keep track of it and you missed out on something, give us a call, give us a question, and we'll do our very best to help you. And again, we thank you for attending tonight. Lynn, thank you for your help. And to all of our guests tonight, good night. And we hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Good night.